Today we're going to be looking at the Uppababy Vista V2, the newest iteration of a well-established heavyweight among reversible seat, four-wheel swivel wheel models, and one of our favorite all-round strollers for some time now. Uppababy in general, and the Vista in particular, hits most of our key categories in terms of what we feel is ideal in stroller design, emphasizing sturdy, simple engineering and strong performance without compromising on luxury and ease of use. The Vista is one of those well-established models with a long history of improvements, and while we will touch a bit here and there on what is specifically new with the V2 version, this review will mainly be aimed at looking at what the model is as a whole, how comfortable it is for children and parents alike, its mechanical attributes, and what roles it fulfills in comparison to the larger market. So let's get started then, beginning with some stats. The Vista V2 clocks in at 12.4 kilos and folds down to 44 by 65.3 by 84.5 centimeters, with the seat attached. It can carry 22 kilos in the primary seat and a whopping 13.6 kilos in the underslung shopping basket. As far as child comfort is concerned, the Vista V2 seat is on the large end of the market, especially with regards to length, and will comfortably seat a child up until around 3.5 or so, before beginning to feel a bit cramped. The seat is built with a bucket design, meaning that it's not possible to change the orientation of the seat back in relation to the baseboard, and thus does not have a full 180-degree recline, though it is still possible to orient the entire frame flat, allowing for a comfortable napping position for children older than 6 months. And, before this age, in my opinion, it's actually better to use the bassinet, which is included with purchase anyway. Despite being otherwise fixed in its orientation within the frame, the Vista V2 seat does have a swivel adjustable leg rest, handy for both child comfort as well as for making the model more compact when using the one-piece fold. When it comes to the canopy, the V2 version has been updated to include that extra extendable portion of fabric zipped into the back of the canopy for extra sun coverage that has become something of an industry standard in recent years. There's also a sliding function allowing one to raise or lower the canopy in relation to the frame, which is particularly useful for providing more enclosing coverage for younger toddlers who don't sit so high up on the seat back. Textile-wise, the V2 version has retained Uppababy's use of decently padded, sturdy, easy-to-clean textiles on the seat itself, while using thicker, softer materials for the canopy and backside of the seat, and together these choices make for a nice blend of practical thinking for your child and a luxurious appearance for you. The height adjustment mechanism on the shoulder straps has also been updated with the V2 model to conform to the new no rethread standard of running the strap along an extra external strap on the seat back. When it comes to parent comfort and ease of use, the Vista functions amazingly if it's the right stroller for your lifestyle. What I mean by this is that it's a somewhat larger and heavier model in comparison to most reversible seat four-wheel swivel wheel models. It's what I tend to call a Cadillac model. Though, with these arguably negative characteristics, at least when it comes to packing and carrying, come a wide array of other advantages, such as a higher than average seat, a spacious and easily accessible shopping basket, a sturdier, more substantial build, and better off-road capabilities. The Vista V2 is not the model for you if you're hopping in and out of a small car all the time. But if, by contrast, what you need is an all-day base of operations that can carry a lot of extra gear and shopping bags and can tackle off-road trails as well as city streets, then it will work wonderfully. Beyond these design advantages afforded by the size of the Vista V2, it's worth noting a few other factors. That the V2 folds quite easily and has a one-piece self-standing fold, at least with the seat in the forward-facing, and that Uppababy has put a lot of little touches into the activation mechanisms across the entire model to increase intuitive use, such as the model's flip-flop friendly swivel locks and brake pedal, and the memory buttons and handle-mounted release mechanism on the bassinet. I'll be discussing these elements a bit more in the mechanics section in a moment, but as far as parent comfort is concerned, all of these little touches definitely add to a certain feeling of luxury when using the model. Okay, let's move on to the mechanics of the Vista V2 then, starting off with the handle, the folding mechanism, and the general build of the model. Beginning at the top then, the Vista uses a telescopic system for its handle, which is a necessity for protecting horizontal stability and also for allowing the handle to tolerate the sort of weight necessary for tipping up the front end when using the tandem configuration. As a side note here, you should always be suspicious of a tandem model's engineering with models that employ a hinged handle height adjustment mechanism, as they are rarely capable of holding up to the necessary stress. Below the telescopic handle are the activation triggers for the folding mechanism, which locks a bit lower at the center of the chassis. Note that this choice of a telescopic handle and activation mechanisms for the fold located higher up on the handle arms necessitates a double wire and pin setup internally, which, on a cheaper, less robustly built model, is often a cause for concern, as it means smaller internal components prone to breaking or alignment problems, but which works quite well with the Vista, since the overall structure of the chassis is built using very solid components with a strong preponderance of metal as opposed to plastic parts, and also as a result of its excellent horizontal symmetry in the form of a big, thick welded crossbar in the back, a skinnier welded crossbar in the front, in addition to the front frame, the telescopic handle, a sturdily locking metal seat or bassinet frame, and lastly the shopping baskets frame. In the end then, the combination of these elements leads to a chassis core with absolutely no horizontal give, or really even potential for horizontal looseness in the long run. Moving on to the rear frame of the model, the first thing that I'd like to point out is that the main suspension on the stabilization struts has now been spring-loaded, which provides for a really nice bounce, making driving over rugged terrain even better than it was before. This is actually a really nice thing to see on the Vista, as even though the model was already pretty terrain capable, the rigid feel of the overall structure did tend to transfer a bit more vibration to the handle than I liked. This improved suspension is complemented with a second change on the V2, in the composition of the tire rubber, which is a bit softer now, though with this second change it will be necessary to see how the new rubber holds up against wear for a couple of years before knowing whether it was worthwhile shift. And to be honest, I really wish they would just switch over to the foam-filled tire design that Bugaboo or Baby Jogger use. Beyond this, the wheels are constructed in the same robust manner that has really always existed on the Vista, and tend to function well, though there is some potential for problems resulting from the fact that the locking mechanisms are located inside the wheel axles rather than within the housings, which can occasionally cause issues if the axles bend or rust as a result of overloading or from failure to lubricate the model as a part of regular maintenance. When it comes to the brakes, the Vista V2 still has the same flip-flop friendly brake system that they had before, and which I'm honestly not a huge fan of, both because the system is wire-based and also because it involves pretty complex spring-loaded mechanisms on both sides of the chassis with a fair number of small plastic components, and is thus quite difficult for average users to fix themselves when problems occur down the road. Looking lastly at the front frame, the Vista V2 has pretty heavy-duty suspension in the forks and also sports large 20cm wheels, which are a real boon for getting up and over obstacles. When it comes to the swivel locks, as with the brake system, I've always been a little less than impressed with the Vista's design here, as the pins themselves are plastic and relatively thin, and the large complicated apparatus of components necessary to make the mechanism flip-flop friendly has just never seemed worth the effort in my opinion. This isn't a huge deal, as most of the time it's unlikely that you will be using the swivel locks at all, but it is worth noting that this was an occasional source of problems on previous iterations of the Vista, where sand and grit worked their way into the buttons and wore the plastic in ways that impeded activation. When it comes to those mechanical solutions taken to protect the integrity of the horizontal swivel of the forks within the front wheel housings, with the Vista V2, we're actually dealing with three main factors. The first being that the locking point on the axles is lower down, while the top portion of the axles are prevented from wearing out the housings via spring-loaded pads that press onto the axles from the side, a brilliant solution that Uppababy has used for a long time. Secondly, a pair of plastic tags press down on the top of the forks, providing vertical pressure. And lastly, the axles slide into the frontal housings directly through ball bearings, creating a completely flush metal-on-metal connection, allowing, initially at least, for no horizontal looseness in the front forks whatsoever. I'm a bit torn on this engineering solution, which is growing more common, as when users are careful to lubricate their strollers, it works very well. But for people who are a little more passive about this, there is the potential for really serious problems down the line if the axles rust directly to the bearings, or if the bearings themselves rust and split. This is a maintenance concern, and a lot of manufacturers that I really respect are also using this setup. But please note that if you get the Vista V2, this is one of those areas that you should be mindful of taking care of, if you want the stroller to last as long as the rest of its otherwise very sturdy build would allow. So, do I recommend getting the Uppababy Vista V2 then? Yes, absolutely. The Uppababy Vista V2 is both one of the sturdiest and one of the most comfortable models to use on the current market. It's expensive, but really no worse than other models on the top end. And what you get for your money is both built to last and comes with a very generous package of inclusions in my opinion, given the entirely separate seat and bassinet, double rain covers and insect nettings, and storage bag. It will fit best for people with either large cars or non-car based lifestyles, and for people with off-roading needs who insist on a reversible seat. Contentious as it may be to say, the Vista V2 is not my ideal choice for parents looking for a dedicated two-child model, whose need for a two-child stroller extends beyond 6 months to a year, unless you also live in a very smooth environment and have specific reasons for not going for either a side-by-side model or a rear-mounting tandem model where the weight distribution will have less of a negative effect on maneuvering. If, however, you are just looking for a great single-child model for now, then the tandem seat can of course be viewed as a major potential bonus, as a quick solution if you wind up having a pinch period where you need a two-child model before your older child is ready to walk on their own. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. In addition, if you are currently shopping for a stroller, we have a buyer's guide on our Patreon page which lists a wide range of models that we recommend, with a lot of technical and lifestyle related information. You can find it by following the link in the description. Thank you.